Have you ever watched a 7-year-old girl walk into a 40-story tower just to hand a letter that could change everything? What would you do if one small envelope could rewrite 8 years of lies, heartbreak, and second chances?
Here for you.
Don't scroll. This story will touch every corner of your heart. If you've ever witnessed love lost and found again, tell us in the comments and let us know where in America you're watching from. The lobby of Hartwell Technologies glittered like a glass cathedral, steel beams, marble floors, and people moving with the pace of profit. And in the middle of it stood a little girl, her shoes wet from the drizzle outside, clutching a crumpled envelope as if it were her heartbeat. "Please, sir, can you read this letter? It's very important." Her voice trembled, but the words carried far. A security guard paused. A woman at reception, Margaret Holt, who'd worked here 20 years, leaned forward. The girl's jacket was faded blue, her cheeks pink from cold. The envelope in her small hands read, "To Ethan Hartwell, urgent. Personal." Margaret stepped out from behind the counter. "Honey, are you lost?" The girl shook her head. "No, ma'am. My name's Lily. My mommy said this letter has to reach Mr. Hartwell today. She said it might save us." Something in that word "save" made the air go still. Margaret crouched beside her. "And what's your mommy's name?" "Rachel Monroe," Lily replied softly. "She told me to follow the light on the tall windows and count 40 floors." Margaret's throat tightened. Company policy said no visitors without appointment, but this wasn't a normal morning. She lifted the phone. "Mr. Hartwell, sir. There's a little girl in the lobby. She says the letter is for you." Oh, 40 stories up, Ethan Hartwell stood behind his desk. The skyline of Seattle stretched beneath him. Everything about him, his gray suit, his posture, his silence, looked built from control. "A letter?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Margaret said. "It's personal." Ethan hesitated. He almost said no. But something in her tone, gentle, urgent, made him exhale. "Send her up." The elevator ride was quiet, except for Lily's small voice counting the floors. 38. 37. Margaret smiled. "You're brave, sweetheart." "I'm not brave," Lily said. "I just promised Mommy." When the doors opened, Ethan was waiting. He looked up, ready to dismiss whatever interruption had breached his schedule, until he saw the child. Those blue eyes. That face. For a moment, his mind played tricks. "Are you Mr. Hartwell?" Lily asked. "I am," he said, his voice softer than usual. "And you're Lily?" She nodded. "Mommy said I had to give this to you myself." She offered the envelope with both hands. He took it carefully. The paper smelled faintly of lavender, like a ghost of a memory. Rachel Monroe. 8 years since he'd last said her name aloud. 8 years since the night everything fell apart. He unfolded the letter. "My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it's because a little girl did something braver than any adult I know. My body is failing, but my hope isn't. There's something you deserve to know. Lily is your daughter." The words hit him like a physical blow. He froze. Impossible, his mind said. The doctors had told him years ago he couldn't have children. But then he looked up, and there they were. Those same blue eyes. The shape of her hands. "Where's your mother now?" he asked. "At home," Lily whispered. "She said she's too tired to climb tall stairs." He stared down at the signature Rachel Monroe, the loops and curves exactly as he remembered. Behind his ribs, something long dormant began to stir. "Margaret," he said quietly. "Clear my afternoon. Call Dr. Hayes. I need the Seattle Cancer Care Center on standby." Margaret blinked. "Yes, sir." Ethan crouched in front of Lily. "How old are you?" 7. "I'll be 8 in December." "December what?" "The 15th. He did the math. December 15th. 9 months after the day he and Rachel had last seen each other. The numbers lined up, like fate, tapping him on the shoulder. "Lily, he said, steady now. I'm going to take you to your mom. Is that okay? That's very okay, she said, smiling through a missing tooth. They descended together, the elevator humming around them. Margaret followed, eyes shining. When the doors opened into the lobby, heads turned the CEO of Hartwell Tech, walking hand in hand with a little girl who looked like him. Outside, the air smelled of rain and salt. The company SUV waited at the curb. Ethan fastened the booster seat himself. Does it have a cup holder? Lily asked. He smiled faintly. 2 of them. Traffic moved slow through downtown Seattle. Lily leaned forward between the front seats, guiding him like a navigator. Turn left at the coffee shop with the green sign, then up the hill with the trees that look like hands. Hands? He asked. Like hands that lost their gloves, she said. Mommy says they'll get new ones in spring. He couldn't help but laugh softly. Rachel used to talk like that, turning weather into poetry. As they drove, his phone buzzed with missed calls from investors. He ignored them all. For once, the markets could wait. Capitol Hill was quiet, the streets narrow, the buildings worn but alive. Lily pointed at a blue apartment building. Right there. Number 3. B. He parked by the curb and shut off the engine. His hands stayed on the wheel a moment longer than necessary. Are you nervous? Lily asked from the back seat. Yes, he admitted. Me too, she said, smiling. We can be nervous together. They climbed the stairwell, their footsteps echoing. On the 3rd floor, Lily pulled a key from her pocket. You knock, she said. Mommy said you'd know what to say. He knocked 3 times. A pause. Then the soft sound of footsteps. A lock turning. The door opened. Rachel Monroe stood there, thinner than he remembered. Her hair shorter, her skin pale. But those eyes, those same quiet eyes, still held the world. The scent of lavender and warm air drifted out from the small apartment behind her. Hello, Ethan, she said. Her voice trembled but didn't break. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. He couldn't speak. His throat felt full of years he hadn't lived properly. Lily slipped between them, holding his hand and hers together. Mommy, she said proudly. I found him. Rachel's hand closed over his. For a moment, 3 lives fit perfectly in the same breath. Then Ethan's phone buzzed again in his coat pocket, one vibration, then another, louder, insistent. He ignored it, but curiosity made him glance. The screen showed an unknown number. 4 words, no punctuation. Don't trust Rachel Monroe. He stared at the message. The room seemed to tilt. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere down the hill. Rachel looked at him with tears in her eyes, unaware of the words glowing cold on his screen. Ethan, she whispered. Will you come in? He hesitated. The phone buzzed again, same number, another message waiting to be opened. He crossed the threshold anyway. The door closed softly behind him, sealing in warmth and questions. In the narrow hallway beyond, another door clicked shut. A faint sound, almost nothing, but enough to make him turn his head. Who else was inside apartment 3B? And who, out there in the gray Seattle rain, wanted to warn him now? The lavender-scented air felt too still. Ethan stood just inside the doorway, his hand still around the phone that had delivered those 4 words. Don't trust Rachel Monroe. The message pulsed across the screen, like a heartbeat refusing to die. Rachel didn't seem to notice. She leaned on the doorframe for balance, her body thinner than he remembered, her breath shallow but steady. Lily dropped her backpack with a thud, instantly running to the small couch covered in a hand-stitched blanket. Mommy, I brought him. Just like you said. Rachel smiled, her voice soft. You did, sweetheart. You really did. The apartment was small but warm. Sunlight pushed through gauzy curtains, landing on old wooden floors that creaked when Ethan stepped forward. There were drawings taped to the refrigerator, stick figures holding hands, big blue circles for eyes. One of them was labeled, "Me and Mommy." Another had a third figure, drawn later, labeled in careful block letters. "Daddy." Rachel caught his glance. "She started that one after I told her your name," she said quietly. "I think she's been waiting for this day a lot longer than either of us have." He wanted to speak. Wanted to say something simple, something human, but his throat felt thick with words he'd never said. Instead, he nodded, slipping the phone into his jacket pocket. "Rachel, before we talk about anything else, I need to ask who else is here." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Someone just texted me. From an unknown number. They said not to trust you." She went pale. "What?" He pulled the phone out, showed her the message. "Do you recognize the number?" Rachel stared at the screen, her fingers trembling slightly. "No. I don't. But Ethan, you have to believe me. I haven't contacted anyone except you. I swear." Lily looked up from the couch. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Rachel forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetheart. Mr. Hartwell and I just have to talk about grown-up things." Ethan turned back toward the hallway. The click he'd heard earlier echoed in his mind, like an unanswered question. The place was too small to hide anyone. One bedroom, one bathroom, a galley kitchen. But the tension coiled in his chest wouldn't let go. "Rachel," he said quietly, "when was the last time anyone visited you?" She hesitated. "A few days ago. My social worker came to check in. I think that's it." He studied her face. The years had softened her but hadn't erased her. Even sick, she was radiant in a fragile way that made him ache. The last time he'd seen her, they'd been shouting in a hotel parking lot under a rainstorm, both too proud to apologize. That memory had been his armor for 8 years. Now, it just felt hollow. "Sit down, please," she said. "You're making me nervous, pacing like that." He exhaled and took a seat across from her, still alert. "You said you're sick. How long?" Oh, 6 months since the diagnosis," she said. "Ovarian cancer. It spread before they caught it. I've been through 2 rounds of chemo, but it's not enough." She gave a small, defeated laugh. "I was saving for a new treatment trial, but, well, life doesn't always wait for savings." Lily came to curl against her side, head tucked beneath her mother's arm. "That's why we needed to find you," she whispered, as if confessing a secret. "Because you're good at fixing things." The simplicity of it undid him. A child's belief, unshakable, innocent, absolute. He cleared his throat. "You should have called me sooner." Rachel's eyes softened. "I tried. I left messages. I even wrote once. Someone answered your email years ago. Said you didn't want to hear from me." Ethan's pulse stumbled. "Who?" She shook her head. "It was from your company domain. I assumed it was your assistant." He leaned back slowly. "My assistant then was Susan Osborne." Rachel's eyes widened. "She was around back then?" "She was," Ethan said grimly. "And she's still around now." A silence stretched between them. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere down on Pike Street, fading into the city hum. Rachel spoke first. "Ethan, I swear I never lied about you. About Lily. You can take another test if you want, but she's yours. Every time she smiles, every time she gets that stubborn look, she's you." He didn't need the test. He already knew. But something darker lingered beneath that conviction now, crawling just under the surface of his mind. If Susan had intercepted messages once, what else had she done? He pushed the thought aside for the moment. "Rachel," he said, his tone softening, "I've arranged for you to start treatment at Seattle Cancer Care. The best oncologists, no waiting list. I'll cover everything." "All," her breath caught. "Ethan, you don't have to." "I do," he interrupted gently. "Lily needs her mom, and I need answers." That afternoon, After arranging the first round of appointments, Ethan stepped out onto the small balcony while Rachel dozed on the couch. From there, he could see the whole city gray rooftops, fog creeping up from the bay, the needle-thin outline of the Space Needle in the distance. The text message still sat on his phone like a bruise. Don't trust Rachel Monroe. He dialed the number. Straight to voicemail. No name, no sound. Just a hiss of static, and then a faint click, like someone listening and hanging up. He turned as a voice spoke behind him. Mr. Hartwell? Lily stood in the doorway, clutching a mug of cocoa. Mommy says I can make hot chocolate by myself now. Want some? He smiled, the tension slipping for a moment. Sure. Thank you, sweetheart. She handed him the mug, then climbed onto the small patio chair beside him. Her feet didn't touch the floor. Mommy said you used to make her laugh, she said casually. She said you were the only person who could make her forget about storms. He looked at her, startled. She told you that? Lily nodded. But then she said storms always find people again. Do you think that's true? Ethan took a slow sip. Sometimes. But I think brave people learn how to walk through them. Lily grinned. That's what I told her too. For a moment, it was easy to forget the fear. Easy to imagine this was already a family. Then his phone buzzed again. He glanced down. The same number. A new message. You're not the only one she lied to. His heart hammered. He looked back at the living room window. Rachel was asleep, one arm draped protectively over the couch pillow where Lily had been sitting minutes earlier. The television flickered softly with muted daytime news. Nothing seemed out of place. But something was wrong. Someone was watching. He typed a quick message. Who is this? What do you want? No reply. Only the 3 dots of someone typing, then nothing. The dots disappeared. A cold wind lifted from the alley below, carrying the smell of rain and diesel. Ethan's instincts, the same ones that built empires and dodged betrayal, were screaming now. He looked at Lily. Sweetheart, does anyone ever come here when I'm not around? Any neighbors who talk to your mom a lot? She thought for a second. Sometimes a lady brings papers. Mommy calls her Miss Carol. She says she's from the hospital, but she doesn't wear a badge like the other doctors do. Ethan's mind clicked through possibilities like gears locking into place. And when did she last come? Yesterday morning. His phone buzzed again, one last message. Check the letter. He froze. Lily, go sit with your mom for a minute, okay? Okay, she chirped, skipping back inside. Ethan pulled the letter from his jacket pocket. The lavender scent was weaker now, almost gone. He unfolded it under the pale afternoon light, eyes scanning every line, every loop of Rachel's handwriting. Then something odd. The bottom edge of the final page was thicker, uneven. He rubbed it between his fingers. 2 sheets? No, one page folded and sealed to hide another beneath. He worked his thumbnail under the edge, peeled carefully until a second piece of paper came free, typed. Not handwritten. A single line across the middle. She's in danger. They're watching all 3 of you. He read it again, feeling the blood drain from his face. Through the window, Rachel stirred, waking to Lily's laughter. The world inside the apartment looked fragile and perfect, like a photograph you didn't dare touch. Outside, Ethan's phone buzzed one more time. No words this time, just an image. A grainy photo, taken from across the street. Time-stamped 5 minutes ago. It showed him standing on the balcony, head bent over the letter. He looked up sharply. Across the narrow alley, one of the opposite windows was dark, except for the faint glow of a phone screen disappearing into the shadows. Someone was there, watching. And whoever they were, they already knew everything. Rain began tapping against the balcony railing, a quiet, rhythmic warning. Ethan stepped back inside, shutting the sliding glass door behind him. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger, tense shoulders, clenched jaw, eyes that had seen too much in too short a time. Rachel stirred on the couch. You okay? she asked. Voice, still groggy from sleep. He hesitated. Yeah. Just checking the weather. She smiled faintly. It's Seattle, Ethan. The weather checks you. He almost laughed. But the knot in his stomach was tightening. Whoever had sent that photo, whoever had eyes on them, wasn't playing games. He slid the letter into his jacket pocket and forced his tone to steady calm. Rachel, lock the door behind me. I'll be right back. Her brows furrowed. Where are you going? Downstairs. I just need to look at something. Ethan. He met her gaze. Please. Just do it. Rachel nodded reluctantly. As the door closed behind him, Ethan's instincts switched from emotional to tactical. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach and damp wood. Each creak of the floor sounded louder than it should. He moved quietly down the narrow staircase until he reached the second-floor landing. Across the alley from the apartment, the dark window that had glowed moments ago was now just another blank rectangle. He slipped out the side exit into the drizzle, scanning the building opposite. Old brick, peeling paint, a flickering security light. One of the windows on the third floor was slightly ajar, curtain fluttering. He crossed the alley, rain soaking through his suit jacket, climbed the fire escape, and stopped beside the open window. Inside was an empty studio, bare walls, a mattress on the floor, fast food wrappers scattered near an unplugged lamp. No people. No sound. But near the window, an ashtray still smoked. Someone had just been here. On the sill sat a small black object. A phone, older model, screen cracked. He picked it up. The wallpaper showed a blurred picture of Lily on the sidewalk in front of Hartwell Tower that morning. His heart lurched. He opened the message log. The last text sent. Check the letter. Sent to his number. A sound behind him, a floorboard creaked. He spun. Don't move, a woman's voice said. He froze. A figure stepped from the shadow near the door. Mid-30s, pale face under a hooded raincoat, eyes sharp with fear and exhaustion. She held up her hands, not a gun, but a badge. Detective Carla Mendez. SPD. You're Ethan Hartwell. Right? Yes. Then put that phone down and step away from the window. Ethan hesitated. This phone was used to send threats to me and Rachel Monroe. Her expression didn't change. I know. I sent them. For a moment, silence filled the space like static. You what? I needed to make sure you'd come looking, she said. If I'd called you directly, you wouldn't have listened. Listen to what? That Rachel Monroe and her daughter are in danger. Real danger. Ethan felt a cold wave wash over him. Explain. Now, Mendez exhaled, lowering her hood. I've been tracking an underground patient identity ring for 6 months. Someone's been using terminally ill patients' medical records to claim insurance payouts under false names. Rachel Monroe's file flagged 3 separate transactions, 2 in her name, 1 in a child's. That's your daughter, Lily. Ethan's pulse spiked. You're saying someone's using them for money? More than that, Mendez said. They're silencing patients who might expose it. 2 have already died. Under treatment complications. Rachel was next on the list. He felt the room tilt. So, she wasn't paranoid. No. But she doesn't know she's being watched. He turned toward the window, gripping the frame. And you've been following her, why? To keep her alive, Mendez said simply. The photo I sent wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Someone else is closing in. I think it's someone inside your company, Hartwell Technologies. The name burned, like acid in his chest. You're saying this connects to me? Mendez nodded. Every patient in this ring has a tie to a healthcare software vendor. Your firm absorbed 3 years ago. Helix Systems. Someone inside your network has access to the encrypted records. Someone with clearance to manipulate patient data. Ethan's mind raced through names, departments, deals. Helix had been a small merger, practically forgotten. Do you have proof? I have fragments. logs, payment trails. I just didn't have anyone with the power to expose it. Until now, he stared at her. Why the hell didn't you come to me directly? Because last time a source trusted someone inside your company, she ended up in the Sound. The words landed like a blow. Mendez slipped a small flash drive from her pocket and handed it to him. Everything I have is on this. Financials, fake claims, photos. If you want to protect Rachel and Lily, start here. But move fast. They'll know you've seen it. Before he could respond, a voice shouted from below, "SPD! Hands up!" Mendez cursed under her breath. Damn it. They weren't supposed to trace me this fast. What's happening? Ethan demanded. They've compromised the department, she said, backing toward the fire escape. Not everyone, but enough. She pointed to the drive in his hand. Trust no one. Especially not your own board. Then she was gone out the window, down the fire escape, swallowed by the rain. Ethan stood frozen, the flash drive burning in his palm, as footsteps thundered up the stairs outside. A sharp knock rattled the door. Seattle PD, open up. He looked once more at the smoking ashtray, the empty room, the cracked phone in his pocket, and then made his decision. He crossed the room in 3 strides, climbed through the window, and dropped to the fire escape below, landing hard on the slick metal. As he ran, the rain came harder, erasing his tracks as fast as he made them. Somewhere above him, a door burst open, and a flashlight swept across the room he'd just left. He didn't stop until he reached Rachel's building again, breath fogging in the cold air. Through the window, he could see her silhouette standing now, talking to someone at the door. Not him, someone else. The hair on his neck rose. He couldn't see the visitor's face, only the shape of a woman in a trench coat, handing Rachel something that glinted under the hallway light. He pulled his phone out, zoomed in, but the angle was wrong. Then he saw Lily running toward the door, laughing, her voice clear even through the glass. The woman leaned down, smiled, handed Lily a white envelope, and looked up just long enough for Ethan to see her face. Susan Osborne. Ethan froze outside the rain-slicked window. Through the glass, Susan Osborne's smile looked perfectly harmless. The same professional charm she'd worn for years as his assistant at Hartwell Technologies. But now it felt wrong. Calculated. Rachel stood in the doorway, still weak but upright, her cardigan hanging loosely over thin shoulders. Lily bounced beside her, excitedly holding the envelope Susan had just given her. Ethan's pulse hammered. Every instinct screamed at him to burst in, to take Lily and Rachel away, but he couldn't, not yet. Not without knowing what Susan wanted. He stepped back into the shadows of the alley, pulling his phone from his coat. He hit record, camera zoomed on the apartment. Susan leaned closer to Rachel. Her voice was muffled through the glass, but fragments reached him through the rain. Company support fund. For your treatment. Just need your signature. Rachel frowned, hesitant. Why is the company involved? Susan smiled with practiced warmth. Mr. Hartwell personally approved it. He's just busy right now. I'm here to help speed things up. Ethan gritted his teeth. That was a lie, and a good one. Rachel took the pen. Lily climbed onto the couch, humming softly to herself, unaware of the tension thickening in the room. Before Rachel could sign, Ethan dialed Rachel's number. The phone on her coffee table buzzed. She picked it up, confusion crossing her face. Ethan. Rachel, he said quickly. Don't sign anything. That woman isn't here for your treatment. Susan stiffened. Her eyes darted toward the window straight to him. For a brief second, their gazes locked through the glass and rain. Then she smiled. Calm and deadly. Rachel's face went pale. What's going on? Ethan's voice hardened. Ask her yourself. Susan's tone changed instantly. Rachel, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Rachel dropped the pen, stepping back. Get out. Susan's pleasant mask cracked just enough for Ethan to see what lived underneath cold, flat calculation. You have no idea what you're doing, she hissed. You're already in over your head. Then she turned, pushed the door open, and walked into the hallway like a woman late for a meeting. Ethan ran around to the front of the building, catching her as she reached the street. "Susan!" he shouted. She didn't flinch. "Ethan," she said evenly, water streaking her face. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," he snapped. "You lied to me. You intercepted Rachel's emails, didn't you?" 8 years ago. Susan tilted her head, rain dripping from her hair. "You built a company on silence, Ethan. Don't act shocked when someone learned how to use it. You're part of the Helix cover-up," he said. "The false insurance claims, the medical fraud, this is on you." Her expression softened, not guilty, but pitying. "I'm not the one you should be afraid of. I'm the one keeping you alive long enough to figure it out." He stepped closer. "Then tell me who's behind it." "Can't," she whispered. "They're already listening." Lightning cracked somewhere over Elliott Bay, white light cutting between them for an instant. When it faded, Susan's calm returned. She pressed the envelope into his chest. "You'll find what you're looking for in there. But don't call me again. Now." She turned and walked away down the rain-soaked street, vanishing into the blur of headlights and fog before he could stop her. Ethan stood under the flickering streetlight, soaked to the bone, staring at the envelope in his hand. Inside, a single sheet of company letterhead, typed neatly across the top: "Confidential. Internal transfer approval. Project Orchard." Below, a list of transactions. Coded payments. Anonymous beneficiaries. One familiar name among them, Rachel Monroe. His breath caught. No, Rachel wasn't part of this. She couldn't be. But her name sat there, in black and white. Authorized by someone inside his own executive board. Back upstairs, Rachel was pacing, confusion and fear twisting her expression when he walked in. What was that about? "Who is she?" "Someone who used to work for me," he said quietly. "Someone who knows more than she should." Rachel folded her arms, voice trembling. "Ethan, you're scaring me. What's happening?" He hesitated. "There's a fraud ring operating through medical records using patients' identities, maybe even yours. Mendez, a detective, warned me. And now, Susan just..." He stopped, noticing Lily at the table. Coloring. Listening, without pretending not to. He lowered his voice. "Susan gave me this." He handed Rachel the document. Her eyes skimmed it. Confusion deepening. "I never saw this before. I swear, Ethan. I didn't sign anything like this." I know," he said. But his tone wasn't as certain as he wanted it to be. Rachel looked up sharply. "You believe me, don't you?" "I want to," he admitted. "But right now, I don't know who to trust." She stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. "You think I'm capable of something like that?" "Rachel." "No," she said, voice shaking. "Answer me." He closed his eyes. "I don't think that. But someone's trying to make it look like you are." Her anger melted into exhaustion. She sank onto the couch, pressing a hand to her forehead. "This is too much. I just wanted Lily to have a father before it was too late." The words hit him harder than any accusation. He sat beside her, silent. Rain pressed against the windows like static. After a long moment, Rachel looked up. "Ethan, what if the person behind this isn't out there?" She nodded toward the envelope. "What if they're inside your company? Someone you already trust?" He thought of Mendez's warning, of Susan's eyes, of the list of internal payments under Project Orchard. "Maybe you're right," Rachel whispered. "Then what are you going to do?" He looked toward Lily, who had fallen asleep at the table, crayon still in her hand. "Whatever it takes." At midnight, when both Rachel and Lily were asleep, Ethan sat alone in the dim kitchen. Laptop open. The flash drive Mendez had given him plugged in. Folders appeared, encrypted files, medical reports, digital signatures, One folder at the bottom blinked with an odd symbol, a small tree icon labeled Orchard, Maine. He clicked. Inside, a document scrolled open. Phase 2 targets. Hartwell integration. Approval. EH. He froze. His own initials. His authorization code. The air went cold. Someone had forged his credentials. Someone inside Hartwell Technologies had built this entire scheme under his name. He slammed the laptop shut, pulse thundering. From the living room came a faint sound, a creak of the floor. He turned, every nerve on edge. At first, he thought it was Rachel stirring. But then he saw it. The shadow of feet standing outside the apartment door. Not moving. Just waiting. The doorknob turned once slowly. Ethan grabbed the nearest object, a metal lamp, holding his breath. The door eased open an inch. Then a folded slip of paper slid under the frame. He stepped closer, bent down, and unfolded it. 4 words, printed neatly on white paper. Too late. She knows. The hallway was silent again. Only the rain outside broke the stillness. A soft whisper against the windows. Ethan stared at the note in his hands. Too late. She knows. Who was she? Rachel? Susan? Or someone higher up, who had been one step ahead all along? He slipped the note into his pocket and turned toward the living room. Rachel was still asleep on the couch, her breathing shallow but steady. Lily had curled beside her, small hand resting on her mother's arm. For a moment, the chaos faded, replaced by something fragile peace. Ethan knelt beside them, brushing a loose strand of hair from Lily's forehead. She stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep. Daddy. The word hit him like a spark, small, bright, and terrifyingly real. For the first time in years, someone had called him that. And she meant it. He sat on the floor until dawn. Every sound from the street below the distant siren, the rolling of tires through puddles, felt heavier than usual. When the first gray light touched the curtains, he stood and walked into the kitchen. Coffee, silence, and a decision waiting to be made. At 7 a.m., Rachel woke, her voice rough. You didn't sleep, did you? He shook his head. I couldn't. She looked toward the window, then back at him. You're leaving. Not for long, he said quietly. But I need to go back to the tower. There's something buried in the company's system. Something with my name on it. I have to clear it before it hurts you. Rachel frowned. Ethan, they're watching us. You can't just walk back in there. I built that place, he replied, steel creeping into his tone. If they think they can use my name to destroy you, they don't know who they're dealing with. Lily yawned from the couch, blinking sleepily. Are we going too? Ethan smiled faintly. Not this time, sweetheart. You're in charge of Mommy today. Lily puffed her chest proudly. Okay. I'll guard her. Rachel smiled, though worry lingered behind it. Be careful, Ethan. Promise me. You'll come back. He hesitated, then nodded. I will. I always come back. He left the apartment an hour later, the city washed in morning gray. The streets glistened, reflections of traffic lights rippling in the puddles. His car waited at the curb, still damp from last night's storm. Inside, he replayed the last 48 hours. Mendez's warning, Susan's visit, the falsified documents, and that final note. Too late. She knows. He drove toward the waterfront, the skyline rising like glass and steel ghosts in the distance. Hartwell Tower stood exactly as it always had. Gleaming. Untouchable. Proud. But now, to Ethan, it looked different. It looked like a crime scene disguised as success. At the security gate, the guard nodded. Morning, Mr. Hartwell. You're in early. Ethan forced a smile. Couldn't sleep. The elevator hummed as it climbed. His reflection in the mirrored walls looked older than it had yesterday. Tired. Determined. When the doors opened on the executive floor, everything smelled the same: polished wood, filtered air, faint trace of ozone from the lighting system. But there was something off. His office door was ajar. He stepped inside. The lights were on. The room was clean, too clean. Every folder, every hard drive, every trace of last night's encrypted data was gone. On his desk lay a single envelope, cream-colored, with his name typed neatly across the front. He opened it. Inside was a photograph Rachel, taken from across the street just hours ago. The timestamp was that morning, 6:32 a.m. Below it, one short message typed in the corner. Bring the flash drive, or you'll lose them both. Ethan felt his heart stop, then surge with fury. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "You made a mistake." He pocketed the photo, straightened his tie, and turned toward the window. Outside, the city moved on cars, lights, people all unaware that one man's war had just begun. And this time, he wasn't walking away. Ethan had always been a man of logic, a builder of systems, a solver of numbers. But logic couldn't hold back the dread crawling through his chest as he stared at the photo of Rachel and Lily. Whoever sent it wasn't bluffing. The timestamp proved it. They were being watched, right outside their own apartment. He sank into the chair behind his desk, rainwater dripping from his coat onto the polished floor. The city below glittered in its morning rush, oblivious to the storm quietly forming 40 floors above. He took a breath, steady but sharp. "Okay," he whispered. "You want a game? I'll play." He plugged in the flash drive Mendez had given him, not into the main network, but into an isolated laptop from the locked cabinet under his desk. Within seconds, a string of encrypted folders appeared again. But this time, he noticed something new, a live connection icon blinking at the bottom corner. Someone else was in the system, watching. "Not today," he muttered. He pulled out his phone and called Dr. Michael Hayes, his oldest friend and the company's chief medical advisor. The line connected on the third ring. "Ethan, it's early. I need your help," Ethan interrupted. "Off the record, I think someone inside Helix, maybe someone from my own board, has been altering medical data and using patients for insurance fraud." Rachel Monroe's file was part of it. There was silence. Then Hayes's voice dropped an octave. "I warned you about that merger. Remember? You said you'd keep Helix on a short leash." "I did," Ethan said, "but someone cut it." Hayes sighed. "Where are Rachel and Lily now?" "At home, but someone's watching them. Now, I can send security." "No," Ethan said firmly. "Whoever's behind this might be security. I need someone outside the company. Someone I can trust." Hayes hesitated. "There's one person I can call, Agent Laura Keating, FBI Cyber Division. She owes me a favor. I can't promise she'll act officially, but she might look." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Do it. And Mike, tell her to move quietly." He ended the call and looked back at the live connection still blinking on his screen. He opened a terminal window and began typing commands faster than he'd thought possible since his early programming days. Within a minute, he traced the connection to an external IP, a location registered not far from the Space Needle. He smiled grimly. "Got you." 2 hours later, Ethan stood outside a nondescript building in Lower Queen Anne. Gray concrete, no signs, just a keypad beside a black door. He'd followed the trace signal here, leaving his phone's GPS disabled and driving in circles to ensure he wasn't followed. Inside, the space smelled of dust and coffee. Rows of unused computers lined the walls. It was a ghost office, the kind used by shell companies. In the center of the room, a single monitor glowed. On it, a message waited. "Welcome back, Mr. Hartwell. You built the system. Did you really think you could erase your own blueprint?" The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Then another line appeared. "You have something that belongs to us. And bring it home." Ethan clenched his fists. Not a chance. He yanked the CPU tower from the wall, tucked it under his arm, and left without looking back. Outside, the drizzle had turned to full rain. By the time he reached his car, his jacket was soaked again, but his focus was razor-sharp. If he couldn't find who was pulling the strings, he could at least make them choke on their own trail. He drove straight to Rachel's apartment. When she opened the door, she looked worse pale, eyes rimmed with fatigue. But when she saw him, a flicker of relief crossed her face. "Ethan. Thank God. You said you wouldn't be long." He stepped inside, setting the computer tower on the table. "Did anyone come here after I left?" Rachel shook her head. "No. Just a neighbor checking in." Lily peeked from behind the hallway, still in her pajamas. "Daddy's back," she announced. Rachel's lips twitched into a smile. "She started calling you that an hour after you left." "Like," Ethan knelt, opening his arms. "I can live with that." Lily ran into his hug, her laughter like the first real sound of hope in 2 days. He held her tight, pressing his face into her hair. "You, keeping Mommy safe?" "Of course," Lily said proudly. "We locked the door 3 times. That's my girl," he whispered. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, watching them. "I don't understand what's happening, Ethan. Why us?" He sighed. "Because someone inside my company is using sick patients as numbers. And you were perfect. Single mother. Limited insurance. Terminal diagnosis. They thought you wouldn't ask questions." Her eyes filled with tears. "But the money that covered my treatments was stolen from others," he finished. "They laundered it through a charity fund I supposedly authorized. They made it look like I approved everything." "Huh." Rachel covered her mouth, horrified. "So they used you too," he nodded. "And now they want the flash drive because it proves everything." Lily looked up. "So, they're the bad guys?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Yeah, sweetheart. They are." Lily crossed her arms, her tiny face set with determination. "Then you're the good guy." Rachel's laughter broke the tension for just a second, a soft, tired sound that felt like home. Ethan reached for her hand. "We'll fix this. I promise. But for now, you both need to go somewhere safe." "Where?" she asked. "My place. Nobody will think to look there." She hesitated. "You mean your penthouse?" "That's the first place they'll look." He shook his head. "Not anymore. I've had it offline for weeks. No signals, no access. It's a ghost on the grid." Rachel considered, then nodded slowly. "All right." Within an hour, they were packed a single duffel bag for Rachel, Lily's pink backpack, and the flash drive in Ethan's pocket. They moved through the city like ghosts, careful, silent, unseen. By the time they reached the penthouse, the clouds were breaking apart, streaks of light cutting through. The elevator doors opened into a space that had once felt sterile, all glass, white walls, and chrome. But tonight, as Lily's laughter echoed against the windows, it felt different. Warmer. Human. Rachel walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking Elliott Bay. "I used to imagine what it was like up here," she said softly. "The view, the quiet. But now that I see it, it just feels lonely." "Then we'll change that," Ethan said. He moved beside her, watching the rain drift into the sound. "You'll get treatment. Lily will go to school. And whoever's behind this, we'll finally see what happens when you take everything from a man who's got nothing left to lose." Rachel turned toward him, her hand brushing his. "And what happens after that?" He smiled faintly. "Then maybe we learn how to live again." She exhaled, eyes soft. "You really think that's possible?" He looked toward Lily, who was now curled up on the couch, fast asleep with her stuffed penguin. "I think she already believes it." The clock ticked quietly between them. For a brief, golden moment, the chaos outside faded. But as Ethan turned off the lights, his phone lit up one last time, a message from an unknown number. "Enjoy your view, Mr. Hartwell. The window works both ways." He glanced at the massive wall of glass facing the city. Across the bay, a red pinpoint of light blinked once a laser scope or a signal, and then vanished into the night. The morning after the red light, Seattle woke under a heavy blanket of fog, the kind that made the skyline vanish, and the streets feel like they were holding their breath. Ethan hadn't slept. He stood at the window with a cup of black coffee gone cold, watching the fog swallow the bay. The message from the night before replayed in his head. "Enjoy your view, Mr. Hartwell. The window works both ways." Someone out there was watching them. Someone who knew exactly where he lived and maybe what he loved most. Behind him, Rachel's soft footsteps broke the silence. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, her voice still hoarse. "You didn't sleep again." He didn't turn. "Can't afford to." Rachel walked closer, placing her hand over his on the window frame. "You can't protect us if you collapse." He finally looked at her. Even pale and tired, she had that quiet strength he'd fallen for years ago, the kind that didn't shout, just endured. "I used to think money could fix anything," he said quietly. "Now I'd trade every dollar just to make you both safe." She smiled faintly. That's a good start. He wanted to believe it. But the truth was, whoever ran the fraud network had already outmaneuvered him twice. They had access to his company, his data, even his life. The flash drive in his pocket was the only weapon left, and it felt like a live grenade. Lily's voice broke through the tension. "Mommy, can we have pancakes?" Rachel turned, her tone softening. "In a minute, sweetheart." Ethan exhaled. "I'll make them. Go rest." "Ethan, let me do something normal," he said, forcing a small smile. She didn't argue. In the kitchen, he whisked batter, like a man rebuilding a world. The smell of butter and vanilla filled the penthouse ordinary. Human. Safe. Lily giggled at the bubbles forming in the bowl. "You're really good at this, Daddy." He looked at her, warmth flickering through his exhaustion. "Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation." Rachel leaned against the counter, watching the two of them with an expression Ethan couldn't read, part awe, part heartbreak. Later that afternoon, after Lily fell asleep for her nap, Rachel found him sitting at his desk, laptop open to a draft email. The subject line read, "Confession." She froze. "What are you doing?" He looked up slowly. "If something happens to me, this needs to go public. Everything, the files, the fraud, the names. Hayes is working with an agent from the bureau. They're closing in. But if I disappear before they can move..." He trailed off. Rachel's voice trembled. "Don't talk like that, Lee." He stood, walked around the desk, and cupped her face gently. "Rachel, I've lived most of my life behind glass. Watching everything. Feeling nothing. But when Lily showed up in that lobby, it was like someone cracked the glass from the inside. Her eyes filled, tears balancing on the edge. You don't owe us this kind of sacrifice, Ethan." He smiled sadly. "Maybe not. But I owe you both a life that isn't built on lies." She took his hand. "Then promise me something. Promise me that whatever happens, we fight this together. No more running alone." He hesitated, then nodded. Together, that night. The fog thickened until the city vanished. Ethan dimmed the lights and turned on the small fireplace. The glow painted Rachel's face in amber. She sat on the couch, her fingers wrapped around a mug of tea. He watched her, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way her shoulders curved slightly when she was thinking. He'd once thought love was an interruption to purpose. Now, he realized it was the purpose. He crossed the room and knelt beside her. "There's something I need to say before the next storm hits." Rachel smiled tiredly. "If it's about coffee filters again, the answer's still no." He chuckled. The first real laugh in days. "No. It's this." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "Ethan, before you say anything," he said softly, "I know the timing's wrong. We're being watched. Your health, my company, everything is chaos. But that's exactly why I need to ask now. Because I don't want another day to pass without you knowing that whatever happens next, I choose you. Her lips trembled. You can't fix what's broken with a ring. He opened the box. Inside, the diamond was modest, simple, elegant, timeless. No, he said quietly, but maybe it can remind us what's still worth saving. Rachel's eyes shimmered. You think I'm strong enough to start over? He smiled. You already did. You raised our daughter. You fought this disease. You came back into my life when I didn't deserve it. If anyone's strong enough, it's you. That's you. And tears slipped down her cheeks. She covered her mouth with one hand, nodding before she could even form the words. Yes, she whispered. Of course. Yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like time had waited for this exact moment to catch up. Lily's small voice floated from the hallway. Did she say yes? They turned. She was standing there in her pajamas, hair messy, eyes wide with excitement. Rachel laughed through her tears. She did. Lily clapped her hands, jumping up and down. Then that means we're really a family. Ethan scooped her up, spinning her once in the air as she squealed with joy. You've been family since the day you walked into my building, he said. Later, after Lily went back to bed, Rachel sat beside him by the fire. You know, she said softly, if someone had told me 8 years ago that this is where we'd end up, I would have laughed. He chuckled. Me too. I thought I was done believing in miracles. Rachel leaned her head on his shoulder. And now? Now I think miracles just need time to find their way back. For a few quiet minutes, the world was kind again. The storm outside eased, the fog began to thin, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt the faint rhythm of peace return. Then, from the corner of the room, a faint chime broke the silence, a single alert from his laptop. The email draft titled, Confession, had vanished. He sat up. No, Rachel blinked. What is it? Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard. The file was gone, deleted remotely. He checked the system logs. One line appeared at the bottom of the screen, cold and clinical. File retrieved, Project Orchard, authorization, R. Monroe. Rachel gasped. Ethan, I know, he said quickly. But the blood drained from his face. Whoever was inside their network had just used her name and her access to pull everything. The fire crackled behind them, throwing long shadows across the room. Ethan, Rachel whispered. What do we do now? He stared at the dark window overlooking the city. The same window that had once felt like a wall of protection. Now, a mirror for every danger closing in. We finish this, he said, voice low and certain. Because they think they're watching us. He turned off the lights, eyes narrowing as the city lights glowed faintly below. But starting tonight, he whispered, we're watching them. Dawn came quietly, painting the skyline in muted gold. For the first time in weeks, the rain had stopped. Seattle looked almost peaceful, like a city pretending it hadn't been listening all along. Ethan stood by the window, coffee in one hand, the flash drive in the other. The weight of it felt different now. Less like evidence, more like a key. Behind him, the soft hum of the penthouse filled the silence. The faint click of the heater, the rhythmic tick of the old wall clock, and the steady breathing of Rachel and Lily, asleep on the couch. They looked fragile, wrapped under the same blanket, 2 lives he was willing to burn the world to protect. The night before had changed everything. The deleted file, the stolen authorization, the final decision. No more hiding. Whoever was behind Project Orchard had just made their last mistake. At 7 a.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Mr. Hartwell? A woman's voice said. It was crisp, professional, but carried that undercurrent of danger. This is Ethan. Agent Laura Keating. FBI Cyber Division. Dr. Hayes said you might call. I didn't. How did you? I traced your company's data breach overnight, she said. Your security network isn't just compromised. It's being rerouted. Someone inside Hartwell Technologies is funneling live data to an offshore account in Belize. And they used your personal credentials to authorize it. He exhaled slowly. They're trying to bury Project Orchard before it surfaces. Exactly, she said. I need the flash drive. It's our only shot to prove who's behind this. He glanced at Rachel and Lily, still sleeping. You'll get it. But not until I know they're safe. I can protect them, Keating said firmly. No, Ethan replied. I've seen what happens to people who believe that. I'll bring the drive myself. Where? Pier 47, Warehouse D, back entrance. 1 hour. The line went dead. He wrote a short note on a scrap of paper and left it on the kitchen counter. Rach, don't worry. I'm ending this. Stay inside. Keep the curtains closed. If I'm not back by noon, call Hayes. E. He slipped the flash drive into his coat pocket, kissed Lily's forehead, then Rachel's. She stirred slightly, murmuring his name, but didn't wake. By the time he reached the garage, the city was beginning to stir. Buses hissed, tires splashed through leftover puddles, and the low hum of morning traffic filled the air. The world had resumed its rhythm, but his had narrowed to one purpose. Pier 47 smelled of salt and rust, the air sharp with cold. Gulls cried overhead, circling empty cranes. Warehouse D stood near the end of the pier. Its corrugated metal walls streaked with rain. Ethan stepped inside. The air was dim. The sound of the bay echoing faintly through broken windows. A figure waited near the loading dock. Agent Keating. Tall, dark jacket. Badge clipped to her belt. She nodded once. You came alone? I did. Good. Do you have it? He reached into his pocket, holding up the flash drive. You'll find everything on here: financial transfers, authorization codes, system logs. It'll lead you straight to the boardroom. She extended her hand. Give it to me. He hesitated. Before I do, I need to know one thing. Who's behind this? Keating's gaze flickered, just slightly. You'll see when the files are decrypted. Ethan caught the shift, the microsecond of tension in her jaw. It was subtle, but he'd spent his life reading contracts and liars. He didn't hand her the drive. You're not FBI, he said quietly. Her eyes hardened. You're right. A second figure stepped out from behind the crates. Susan Osborne. The raincoat was gone. Now she wore black. Professional. Efficient. The same composure she'd used to manage his calendar for 6 years. Hello, Ethan, she said almost gently. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping. You always were good at pretending loyalty. Susan smiled faintly. I was loyal. To the system that worked. Project Orchard wasn't meant to harm anyone. It was designed to preserve data, the lives of patients, their DNA, their digital profiles. But the investors saw profit. And you, she stepped closer. You turned your back on it. You turned it into a crime, he snapped. She shrugged. Morality doesn't pay the bills. Ethan's voice was calm but sharp. And Rachel? Lily? Were they just part of your experiment too? For the first time, something flickered in Susan's eyes. Guilt, faint but real. Rachel wasn't supposed to be involved. She was a loose end. The board made that call. The board? She nodded. And one more name you'll recognize, Michael Hayes. Ethan felt the world tilt. Hayes? No, he fed you the flash drive, Susan said. Fed you every breadcrumb. The bureau, the detective, the warnings, all his idea. He needed you to surface the files so he could erase the trail himself. Ethan stared at her. You're lying. She smiled sadly. I wish I were. A noise from outside the grind of tires on gravel. Two black SUVs pulled up. Headlights piercing through the warehouse slats. Men in tactical gear stepped out, radios crackling. Susan's tone turned cold. "Give me the drive, Ethan. Or they come inside." He took a slow step back. "You think I brought the real one?" Her eyes widened slightly. "What?" He smiled. "You trained me too well, Susan." From his coat, he tossed the flash drive into the shadows behind her. It clattered on the floor, and a red light blinked to life. "Adekoi," Susan cursed. "Move in." The warehouse erupted, boots pounding, shouts echoing. Ethan ducked behind a crate as glass shattered overhead. He sprinted toward the side door, grabbing the small steel laptop he'd hidden in his bag. Outside, the fog thickened, swallowing the world in gray. He ran toward the end of the pier, wind cutting like knives. Behind him, Susan's voice screamed, "Hartwell!" He didn't look back. He reached the edge, opened the laptop, and pressed send. A progress bar flashed across the screen, uploading. 97%. 98%. 99%. Bullets cracked the air. One hit the railing near his arm, sparks flying. He pressed enter. The final bar filled "File transfer complete." A second later, every monitor inside Hartwell Tower, every shareholder terminal, and every news feed across the city lit up with a single phrase: Project Orchard, internal fraud, exposed. He closed the laptop just as another bullet ripped past him. But before the next shot came, sirens wailed loud, sharp, coming from the highway. Real ones this time. He turned. Dozens of police cars swarmed the pier. Susan froze mid-step, realizing too late that the upload had triggered the federal network alert. Two agents tackled her. Another retrieved the decoy drive, shouting into his radio. Ethan lowered to his knees, breath ragged, rain soaking his face. For the first time in months, he felt something real relief. Hours later, the penthouse was quiet again. Rachel stood by the window, Lily asleep in her arms. Outside, the city glowed, under clear skies. No fog, no rain, just light. Ethan walked in, bandaged, tired, but alive. She turned, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're hurt," he smiled faintly. "Just scratches." Rachel crossed the room, hugging him hard. "I thought you weren't coming back." "I told you," he whispered. "I always come back." She looked up at him. "Is it over?" He exhaled. "Mostly. The truth's out. The rest will take time, but no more hiding." Rachel smiled softly. "Then we start over." Lily stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about pancakes. Ethan brushed her hair back gently. "And this time," he said, "we do it right." Rachel took his hand, the engagement ring, catching the morning light. "So what happens now?" He looked out at the horizon, where sunlight met the sound. "Now," he said, "we live." Outside, the gulls rose into the air, scattering across the brightening sky. The tower that once symbolized power now stood as something else, a monument to truth. And inside the penthouse, where love had once been lost and found again, a family began to breathe freely for the first time in years. Ethan Hartwell had built an empire from glass and code. But in the end, it wasn't money or systems that saved him. It was a letter from a dying woman and the courage of a little girl who believed in love. The photograph lay between them like a ghost that had been waiting to be seen. The image was grainy, the corners curled from age, but the details were unmistakable. The church archway, the cobblestone path, the two women frozen, mid-step, one in a dark overcoat and green scarf, the other in a nun's habit. Elena turned the photo over again. The back still read, "Street Mary's Home for Lost Children 1952. Sister Catherine Rivera. Rivera." Their family name. Michael's pulse thudded in his ears. "I don't understand. How could she have our name?" We didn't have any nuns in the family, did we? Rosa shook her head slowly. Not that Abuela ever mentioned. But the family came from Puerto Rico. Some stayed behind. Some came here. Maybe she was a cousin. Or maybe someone using the name. Elena frowned. Or hiding behind it. The air in the room felt heavier. The photo wasn't just evidence. It was a crack in the silence that had sealed their story for 70 years. That evening, Elena called Agent Carter. He met them the next day at a quiet coffee shop near the Loop, a folder tucked under his arm. "I've been looking into your Street Mary's connection," Carter said, opening the file. "You were right. The facility was shut down in 1953. But here's what's strange. Sister Catherine Rivera's personnel file vanished. The same week as Marta's arrest warrant was issued." Michael leaned forward. "They knew each other?" Carter nodded. "More than that. We think they worked together. Marta was the recruiter she found children. Sister Catherine handled the paperwork. The falsified baptism records. The transport papers. But then, around March of '52, Sister Catherine disappears. Her trail ends completely." Elena's stomach tightened. "March 1952. That's the month Michael was taken." Carter didn't need to confirm it. The silence said enough. Michael rubbed his temples. "If she helped Marta, why use our name?" Carter hesitated. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she really was a Rivera. "There's one note left in her personnel. File a letter from the diocese that says she was admitted under her maiden name, Catherine Morales Rivera. It's possible she was related by blood." Elena blinked. "You're saying she might have been family?" Carter shrugged slightly. "It's speculation. But not impossible. If she was connected to your grandmother, it might explain why Marta targeted your family." Michael stared at the photo, his voice low. Someone betrayed her trust from inside. After Carter left, the apartment felt colder. Rosa sat with her rosary in her hands, whispering prayers under her breath. Elena couldn't sit still. She opened her laptop, searching archives, old church registries, anything tied to Catherine Rivera. Hours passed. Then one small lead, a digitized census record from 1940, listed a Catherine Morales Rivera, age 19, born in Ponce, Puerto Rico, immigrated to the mainland in 1938. Listed occupation: novice, Street Mary's Convent. Elena scrolled further down the record. There, under family members, her breath caught. Antonia Rivera, sister, aged 22. Abuela had a sister, Elena whispered. And she never told anyone. Michael stood up slowly, the chair creaking. That means the nun in the photo was her sister, my aunt. Rosa covered her mouth. Dios mío. The revelation landed like thunder. The pieces began to shift, in ways none of them expected. If Antonia's sister was at Street Mary's, then she had been in a position to know about the adoption network. Maybe she had joined it to protect children, or to stop it, and became trapped in something she couldn't control. Elena scoured old Catholic records until she found one final entry. Sister Catherine transferred to Street Mary's orphan home, Des Moines, Iowa, April 1952. 1 month after Michael disappeared, there were no further notes. No death certificate. No reassignment. Just silence. Days later, they drove 6 hours west through the flat, endless fields of Iowa. The old orphanage building still stood abandoned. Its windows shattered. The sign faded to ghosts of letters. A padlock clung to the rusted front gate, but Elena found a loose section in the fence. Inside, the halls smelled of dust and mildew. The chapel was empty, except for broken pews and a cracked statue of the Virgin Mary. The silence pressed against them like water. Michael walked slowly down the corridor, running his hand along the peeling walls. I know this smell, he whispered. I was here. Elena turned sharply. Here? Are you sure? He nodded. The sound of the bells. The echo. I remember hiding under a bench once, afraid to breathe. In one of the back rooms, they found a small wooden cabinet with dozens of file drawers, most empty, others filled with brittle folders half-eaten by time. Elena opened one, labeled 1,950, 2 intake records. Inside were 2 sheets. The first listed a child transferred from Chicago under emergency placement. The name, William Harrison. The second was a letter, typed, unsigned. He's safe now. Thank you for giving him a home. M. Michael swallowed hard. That's her handwriting. I remember it from the note. But this was sent to the Harrison family, Elena said softly. Which means Marta didn't just steal you. She placed you herself. He stared at the letter, voice trembling. Then why the note with my name? Why leave traces? Rosa crossed herself. Maybe she regretted it. Maybe she tried to undo it. Elena picked up another fragment of paper from the drawer, barely legible. It looked like part of a letter, never sent. Only one sentence was clear. Tell Antonia I'm sorry. I thought I was saving him. Elena met Michael's eyes. That's from Sister Catherine. He exhaled, his shoulders shaking. She didn't betray Mommy. She tried to protect me, and it destroyed them both. They stood in silence as sunlight slanted through the broken windows, painting gold dust across the floor. For the first time, the story didn't feel like a mystery. It felt like a wound closing. As they walked back toward the car, Michael paused at the gate and looked back at the building. I spent a lifetime believing the world had forgotten me, he said quietly. But maybe it didn't. Maybe it just took this long to find its way back. Oh, Elena touched his arm. We found her too. Maybe that's what Abuela's prayers were really for. He nodded, smiling faintly. Not just for me to come home, but for the truth too. As they drove away, the wind swept through the broken windows of the orphanage. For a brief moment, a green ribbon fluttered down from one of the rafters, twisting gently in the fading light. The letter at Hartwell Tower is more than a story about crime, betrayal, and redemption. It's a mirror, held up to the human condition. Beneath its cinematic suspense lies a truth about modern life. That in a world driven by technology, ambition, and control, what we often lose first is the heart that once guided us. Ethan Hartwell's journey is not simply the downfall of a corporate titan. It's the rebirth of a man who learns that love, compassion, and courage are the real currencies of life. Through Rachel's quiet strength and Lily's innocent faith, the story reminds us that the most powerful acts of change often begin with vulnerability. A letter, a voice, or a simple act of truth. It shows that redemption is not a grand gesture, but a series of small, stubborn choices to do what's right, even when it hurts. Ethan's transformation from a man blinded by success to a father and protector guided by conscience reveals how healing begins when we stop running from our mistakes and start taking responsibility for them. On a broader level, the narrative exposes the moral erosion that often hides behind progress. It asks us to question how far we're willing to go for success, and whether integrity still matters in a world where data and profit rule. Yet, even amidst deception and fear, the story ends with hope, proof that goodness can outlast greed, and that truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way home. Ultimately, the letter at Hartwell Tower teaches us that love is not a weakness, but the most powerful form of resistance, a force that can rebuild lives, redeem souls, and remind us what it truly means to be human.